Hey Pagan family, I hope you all are doing well today. So for this video, I wanted to talk about different pagan paths. So there are many different worldviews and philosophies that tie the pagan community together. For example, most pagan religions recognize the wheel of the year and the cyclical nature of life. Most pagan religions also find aspects of the divine within the natural world and seek to focus their events and rituals around nature. However, within the pagan community, there are a ton of different paths that you can follow, and it can be tricky, especially for someone new to the pagan faith, to figure out which path fits them best. And that's what this video is going to be about. I'm going to be sharing with you some of the things that can help you decide which pagan path to follow. So let's jump right into it. If you're brand new to paganism and don't really know where to start, you could look towards your ancestors and which pagan path they followed. It's my belief that you definitely don't have to follow the pagan path that matches your ancestry, though it can be a good starting point if you're unsure of where to begin. So for example, my ancestors came from Denmark, Ireland, England, and Scotland. So over the past few years, I've been researching Norse paganism, Celtic paganism, and Druidry. And one last note about this concept. So in certain pagan paths, ancestor veneration is a big part of the practice, and in some pagan paths, it's not really that important. For example, I've heard from practitioners of hoodoo that ancestors are a big part of their practice, and that you might not be able to experience the practice fully if you don't share that ancestry. On the other side, you have Wicca, for example, which focuses much more on deity, so ancestors aren't nearly as important. Some pagan paths have a certain structure and hierarchy you can follow when it comes to your education. So for example, certain Wiccan traditions like Gardnerian Wicca usually have a coven structure with a high priest and a high priestess you can learn from. And because Wicca has been the most popular pagan path over the last few decades, there are a lot of options when it comes to learning. You could possibly join a mentorship program, or there are even a lot of online courses you can take. And of course, there are thousands of books out there that can help teach you this particular pagan path. Other pagan paths, however, probably don't have as many books or options when it comes to education. For example, when it comes to Norse paganism, we're pretty much relying on primary sources such as the Havamal and the Poetic Edda to really understand the philosophy, worldview, and religious practices of the Norse pagan path. And there aren't as many books or courses that explain how to practice this path as a contemporary Norse pagan, so you're going to have to do quite a bit of your own research. So I guess you can kind of ask yourself, well, how much of a history nerd are you? Because certain paths like Wicca will be very easy to find a ton of educational resources on, while other paths like Norse paganism, Hellenic paganism, or Kemeticism means that you're going to be doing a lot of historic research. While the pagan community as a whole is growing a lot each year, certain pagan paths have more community events and meetups than others. So if you want to join a coven or a group that has a lot of regular meetups, Wicca might be a good fit for you. Even most large-scale events like Pagan Pride tend to be focused around Wiccan traditions, though this is beginning to change a little. For example, over the past decade, the Norse pagan community has really grown, and I've seen a lot more meetups start to pop up around the country. Though if practicing with others isn't really that important to you, you definitely have a lot more options when it comes to choosing a pagan path to follow. Lastly, probably the best way to decide which pagan path is best for you is to ask yourself what you feel most drawn towards. There are certain paths that you're going to more naturally gravitate towards than others, so trust your intuition here and ask yourself, well, what feels right? There is no one rulebook when it comes to paganism. You have the ability to choose the path you want. And in my view, that's one of the things that makes paganism really great. So I hope you enjoyed this video today. If you did, please give it a like and consider subscribing. And if you'd like to support this channel and the work I'm doing here, I would love it if you would consider joining my community on Patreon. One of the new things I'm going to be offering on my Patreon is monthly live tarot readings. So I'm super excited to start that for my community over there. And if you are interested, I will leave the link down below in the description box. So I want to wish you guys all the best, and I will see you next week. Bye.